The air inside Peterson Forge and Steel didn't just smell, it tasted. It tasted like ozone, burnt hydraulic fluid, and the sweat of 200 men who knew exactly how much their severed fingers were worth according to the workers' comp chart. For 17 years, that taste was my breakfast. I'm Mary. My official title was Director of Industrial Safety, but in reality, I was the only thing standing between this rust bucket cathedral of fire and a smoking crater in the state landscape. I clocked in at 0530. Always 0530. The sun wasn't even thinking about rising yet, but the forge was already screaming. The floor vibrated through the soles of my steel-toed red wings, a hum that settled deep in your molars. That vibration was the heartbeat of the plant. If it skipped, I knew. If it raced, I knew. And lately, thanks to the new leadership, the whole damn place felt like it was going into AFib. I started my rounds near the number 4 press. It's a 3-story monster capable of exerting 5,000 tons of pressure. It turns solid steel into car parts like it's squishing Play-Doh. I saw Miller, a shift foreman who looked like he'd been carved out of beef jerky, bypassing a sensor on the safety gate. He had a screwdriver jammed in the latch. "Miller," I barked. My voice isn't loud, but it cuts through the decibels like a diamond drill bit. "You got a death wish, or are you just trying to see how red you can paint the floor today?" Miller jumped, nearly dropping his wrench into the moving die. "Mary, Jesus, we're behind quota. The sensor's finicky. It trips if you sneeze. It trips so you don't get turned into a meat pancake," I said, walking over and yanking the screwdriver out. The machine ground to a halt. Silence, most expensive sound in a factory, suddenly filled the bay. "Log it, tag it out, fix the sensor. If I see you rig this again, I'm not riding you up. I'm walking you out." He glared at me, wiping grease on his pants. "Hunter ain't gonna like the downtime, Mary. He's already riding my ass about the output metrics." "Hunter can ride whatever he wants," I said, zip-tying a red danger do not operate tag onto the controls. "But he can't ride a press that's covered in your intestines. Fix it." I walked away, feeling his eyes burning a hole in the back of my high-vis vest. That was the mood lately. Tension thick enough to choke a turbine. Do me a solid and smash subscribe. It keeps the lights on better than the wiring in this death trap, and it motivates the team to keep digging up these skeletons. Seriously, just click it. It's safer than anything in this story. I headed up to the catwalks. From up there, the factory floor looked like a circle of hell Dante forgot to write about. Sparks showered down in golden rain from the welders in Bay 2. Forklifts zipped around like angry beetles. It was beautiful in a terrified, industrial way. I loved this place. I respected the danger. You have to. A forge doesn't have morality, it has physics. If you disrespect the physics, you die. It's that simple. But physics wasn't the problem anymore. The problem was sitting in the executive office, probably drinking a green smoothie and looking at spreadsheets he didn't understand. Old man Peterson, the founder, had been a hard ass, but he respected the grit. He knew that safety regulations were written in blood, usually the blood of guys named Stumpy or Lefty from the 1970s. But the old man retired last month. He handed the keys to the kingdom to his son, Hunter. Hunter. Name alone sounded like a punchline. He was 32, had an MBA from a college that probably sold degrees in a bundle with spray tans, and he'd never touched a wrench in his life. He wore suits that cost more than my car and looked at the workers like they were malfunctioning appliances. I made my way to the chemical storage locker. I needed to check the ventilation logs. As I walked, I saw a puddle of hydraulic fluid near the aisle. A slip hazard. I grabbed a bag of absorbent granules, we call it kitty litter, and dumped it. While I was kicking it over the spill, my radio crackled. "Mary, this is security. We got a situation at the main gate." "What kind of situation, Earl? Did the raccoons get into the dumpster again?" "No, ma'am, it's Hunter. He's trying to bring I think it's a photographer. They aren't wearing PPE. I sighed, the sound rattling in my chest like loose gravel. On my way. I marched to the front. There he was. Hunter Peterson. He looked like a stock photo of business success came to life and started doing cocaine. He was standing there with a guy holding a camera the size of a bazooka. Hunter was wearing loafers in a heavy forge. "Mary," Hunter flashed a smile that was all teeth and no warmth, just the buzzkill I wanted to see. "We're doing some shots for the new website. Modernizing the brand, you know? Capturing the raw energy." "Hunter," I said, crossing my arms. "He can't be on the floor without steel toes, safety glasses, and a hard hat. And neither can you in those slip-ons." Hunter laughed. It was a dry, dismissive sound like paper tearing. "Relax, Mary. We're just going to stand by the yellow line. We aren't touching anything. Don't be such a dinosaur. The yellow line doesn't stop shrapnel, Hunter. And it doesn't stop a forklift from sliding on oil, PPE, or he waits in the lobby." Photographer looked nervous. Hunter looked annoyed. His eyes narrowed, the smile vanishing like a blown fuse. "This is my plant, Mary," he hissed, leaning in. He smelled of expensive cologne and entitlement. "I'm trying to bring this rust bucket into the 21st century. Stop throwing red tape at me every time I try to breathe." "It's not red tape," I said, staring him dead in the eye. "It's the law, and it's my job if he goes out there. I'm logging a violation against executive management." He stared at me for a long, heavy second. I could see the gears turning, not the precision gears of a Swiss watch, but the rusty, grinding gears of an ego that had never been told no. Fine, he snapped. Get him a hat, but Mary, we need to talk later. About your adaptability. My calendar is open, I lied. As they walked away, looking like tourists in a war zone, I felt a cold knot in my stomach. This wasn't just a clash of styles. This was a countdown. I checked my clipboard. The monthly state audit window opened in 2 weeks. Hunter didn't know that. He thought audits were things you could reschedule with a golf game. I looked at the forge, spewing smoke and fire. I looked at Hunter's retreating back. Adaptability, I muttered to myself. Buddy, I'm about to adapt your ass right out of a lawsuit. I didn't know it then, but I had just started writing my own termination letter. And honestly, it was going to be my masterpiece. The all-hands meeting was held in the shipping bay because it was the only place big enough to hold 200 angry, tired people without starting a riot. Hunter had ordered a stage to be built, a literal stage. Wood risers, a podium, the works. He even had a banner printed that said Peterson Forge, forging the future faster. Faster, I whispered to Mike, union steward standing next to me. Mike looked like a fire hydrant with a mustache. That's a great word to see in a place where slow means you keep your thumbs. He's gonna cut the break times, Mary. I can feel it in my bad knee, Mike grumbled, spitting into a coffee cup. Hunter bounded onto the stage like he was hosting a game show. He was wearing a headset microphone. The feedback screech made half the room wince. Good morning, Team Peterson, Hunter yelled. His voice echoed off the corrugated metal walls, sounding hollow. I know change is scary. I know you guys are used to the old ways, the slow ways, the safe ways. He actually made air quotes around the word safe. My blood pressure spiked so hard I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. But the market doesn't care about safe, Hunter continued, pacing the stage. The market cares about lean. The market cares about speed. You're bleeding money on protocols that were written when disco was cool. Effective immediately, we are implementing the Velocity Initiative. He clicked a clicker, and a PowerPoint projected onto a bedsheet hung over a forklift. It was a graph with an arrow going up. Groundbreaking stuff. We are streamlining inspections. We are reducing idle time between shifts. And we are installing the new MK Ultra turbine. He laughed at his own joke. Nobody else did. The Titan X7 turbine starts installation tomorrow. And we are going to do it in 3 days, not 3 weeks. A murmur went through the crowd. 3 days to install a high-pressure steam turbine? That wasn't ambitious, that was suicidal. You need concrete to cure. You need alignment calibration. You need vibration testing. Any questions? Hunter asked, daring anyone to speak. I raised my hand. I didn't wait to be called on. 3 days doesn't give the foundation concrete time to cure, Hunter. If you spin a turbine that size on wet concrete, it'll tear itself out of the floor and go through the roof, or through the break room wall. Hunter sighed into the mic. It sounded like a massive, amplified deflation. Mary, always the ray of sunshine. We're using a new quickset polymer compound. It's expensive, but it's fast. This is what I mean, guys. You have to stop thinking about why we can't and start thinking about how we will. He looked at me with a pitying smile. Safety is important, Mary, but profit is survival. Don't be the anchor dragging the ship down. The meeting ended with polite, terrified applause. The kind you give a pilot who just announced the landing gear is stuck, but it's probably fine. That afternoon, the contractors for the turbine arrived. They weren't our usual guys. Our usual guys were expensive, union, and slow because they were thorough. These guys pulled up in unmarked vans. They looked like they'd been hired from a Craigslist ad that said must own wrench, no questions asked. I walked over to their foreman, a guy with a neck tattoo that said no regrets. I need to see your certs, I said, clipboard ready. Welding certs, crane operator licenses, and your confined space entry permits. The guy laughed. Talk to the boss man, lady. We're on a waiver contract. There's no such thing as a waiver for gravity, I snapped. I stormed up to Hunter's office. His secretary, a nice girl named Brenda who looked like she was constantly on the verge of tears, tried to stop me. Mary, he's on a call with the investors, I pushed past her. Hunter was spinning in his chair, feet on the desk. You hired scabs to install a pressurized bomb in the middle of my plant, I said, slamming my hand on his desk. Hunter didn't flinch. He just held up a finger. Finished his sentence, yeah, tell the agonizingly slow safety board we're ahead of schedule, ciao, and hung up. Mary, he said, staring at his cuticles, you're being dramatic. Those guys are specialists. They're hacks, Hunter. I saw them rigging the crane. They used a frayed strap. If that turbine drops, it's $1 million of damage and probably 2 funerals. Hunter stood up. He wasn't tall, but he stood on his toes when he was angry. Then watch them. That's your job, isn't it? Babysit. But do not, I repeat, do not stop that work. If that line stops, you're costing me 10 grand an hour. Are you writing a check for 10 grand an hour, Mary? I'm trying to save you from manslaughter charges, I said, my voice dropping to a low growl. Get out, he said, turning his back. Go put on your little hat and count fire extinguishers. Leave the business to the big boys. I walked out. I felt something inside me snap. Not a loud snap. Like a bone, a quiet snap like a tension wire finally giving up the ghost. I went back to my office, a glass box overlooking the floor. I sat down. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened a new folder on my computer. I named it Insurance Policy. Then I opened the email client. I started typing, not to Hunter, to myself. I started logging everything. Time, date, conversation, specific violation codes. Okay, big boy, I muttered, watching the scabs struggle to unload the massive turbine casing below. You want to play chicken with a freight train? Let's see who blinks. The air in the office felt stale, recirculated. It smelled like copier toner and impending disaster. I cracked a Diet Coke. It tasted like battery acid. Perfect. There's a saying in safety, if it isn't written down, it didn't happen. But there's a darker corollary to that. If it is written down and you ignored it, you're screwed. The next 3 days, I became a ghost in my own factory. I stopped yelling. I stopped chasing down foremen to fix minor infractions. Instead, I became a photographer of the apocalypse. I used my company tablet, the ruggedized one that could survive a drop from a crane. I walked the perimeter of the new turbine installation, Hunter's Titan X7 project. It was a disaster in slow motion. The quickset polymer they poured, it was bubbling. Bubbles in a foundation mean air pockets. Air pockets mean weakness. When that turbine spins up to 3,600 RPM, that foundation is going to crumble like a stale biscotti. I took a photo. Click. Timestamp 09:14 a.m. Note, visual evidence of improper curing/outgassing in base slab. Cited violation of ASTM something or other. I knew the codes by heart. I saw the specialist contractors welding the steam pipes. Their beads were sloppy, looking like caterpillars having seizures. Undercutting, porosity, it was garbage work. I zoomed in. Click. Timestamp 10:45 a.m. Note, steam pressure line weld integrity compromised. High risk of rupture. I didn't stop the work. Hunter had given me a direct order, do not stop that line. Okay, boss, I won't stop it. I'll just build the autopsy report while the patient is still breathing. My office became a war room. I printed emails. Every time Hunter sent a snarky reply like, "Stop worrying, Mary, we have a warranty," I printed it. I highlighted the timestamp. I filed it in a binder. I called the binder the Book of Hunter. On Tuesday, I was in the break room getting coffee, mud water really, when I saw the company calendar on the bulletin board. Someone, probably Brenda, had pinned up the monthly schedule. There it was, next Thursday. State Safety and Compliance Audit. It was written in red marker. But then someone had taken a black Sharpie and crossed it out, writing rescheduling over it in big, aggressive block letters. I stared at that calendar. You can't just reschedule a state audit because you feel like it. You can ask for an extension, sure, but if you don't get confirmation, they show up. And the state office is notoriously bad at checking their voicemails. I went back to my desk and logged into the state portal. I had a login from my days serving on the regional safety board. I checked the status of our audit. Status, confirmed. Inspector, Reynolds T. Tom Reynolds. I knew Tom. We'd worked together back in the late 90s when he was a rookie inspector and I was cutting my teeth. Tom was a by-the-book guy. He measured guardrails with a laser micrometer. He didn't take bribes and he didn't take bullshit. Hunter hadn't rescheduled anything. He'd probably just told Brenda to call them, and when she got a voicemail, he assumed it was done. I could have told him. I could have walked into his office right then and said, "Hey, the state is coming and they're going to shut us down if that turbine isn't up to code." A month ago, I would have fought to save the plant. But then I looked at my email, a new message from Hunter. Subject, uniform policy. Mary, I noticed you wearing that ragged Carhartt jacket on the floor again. It looks unprofessional. Please switch to the branded polo shirts immediately. We need to project a clean image. I looked down at my jacket. It was stained with grease, singed on one sleeve from a spark 3 years ago and stiff with grime. It was fire retardant. It was armor. The branded polo was 100% polyester. If that caught fire, it would melt into my skin and I'd look like a cheap candle. He wanted me to wear plastic in a foundry so I'd look clean. I closed the email. I didn't reply. I looked back at the portal status, confirmed. Okay, Tom, I whispered to the screen. Come on down. I'll leave the light on for you. I spent the rest of the day archiving the lockout-tagout logs. I made sure every single one of my inspections was digitized and backed up to a cloud server that Hunter couldn't access. I wasn't just covering my ass, I was plating it in titanium. The plant hummed around me. The new turbine was starting to take shape, a hulking mass of shiny steel sitting on a bed of bubble-filled plastic. It looked impressive. It looked modern. It looked like a bomb. I packed up my bag a little later than usual. As I walked to my truck in the parking lot, I saw Hunter's Tesla plugged into the charging station. He'd had the station installed last week, taking up 2 handicap spots to do it. Nice car, I muttered as soon as I was off company property. Shame about the resale value once this place goes Chapter 11. I drove home, the binder the Book of Hunter sitting on the passenger seat like a silent passenger. I wasn't scared anymore. I was patient. And in my line of work, patience is the deadliest weapon there is. Wednesday brought the circus. Hunter had invited a group of angel investors, which turned out to be 3 guys who looked like they owned a vape shop conglomerate and a woman who was scrolling TikTok while walking through a foundry. I was doing a final check on the emergency eye wash stations when I saw them approaching the Titan X7 turbine. The specialist contractors were grinding welds, sending showers of sparks flying 10 feet into the air. The noise was deafening, a high-pitched shriek of metal on metal. Hunter was leading the pack, shouting over the noise. He wasn't wearing hearing protection. Neither were his guests. I intercepted them. I had to, it's reflex. "Hunter," I shouted, stepping in front of the group. I held up a box of disposable earplugs and a stack of spare hard hats. "You need these. This is a high-noise area, and there's overhead crane movement." Hunter stopped. He looked at his friends, then at me. He rolled his eyes so hard I thought he'd sprain a retina. "Guys, this is Mary," he said, shouting to be heard. "She's our safety enthusiasts, a bit of a relic from the old regime." The vape shop guys chuckled. One of them, a guy wearing a blazer over a t-shirt, smirked. "Whoa, scary Mary. We're good, sweetie. We're just passing through." "Sweetie?" The word hit me like a splash of liquid nitrogen. "Put the hats on," I said. I voice flat, "and the plugs." "OSHA regulations require." Hunter stepped forward, entering my personal space. He grabbed the box of earplugs from my hand and tossed them onto a nearby workbench. "Mary," he said, his voice dropping to that dangerous, quiet tone he used when he wanted to feel like a big man. "We are in a non-active transit zone. I designated it myself this morning. These are my guests. You are embarrassing the company." "A non-active zone." I pointed to the grinder showering sparks 3 feet away. "Hunter, that is active hot work. Physics doesn't care about your designations. I care," he snapped. "I care about showing these people a modern, frictionless facility. And you are friction. Look at you. You're scaring them." He gestured to my outfit. My coveralls, my grease-stained gloves, my battered hard hat covered in safety stickers. "This is what work looks like, Hunter," I said. "It's dirty. It's dangerous. And if that crane up there slips a gear, which it might, because you cut the maintenance budget, your friend there in the blazer is going to be wearing a 2-ton engine block as a hat." The woman looked up nervously at the crane. Hunter turned purple. "That is enough. Go to your office. Now, do not come out until I tell you. If I see you on this floor again today, you are done. Do you understand?" "Done." The floor went silent. The workers nearby, Miller, the crane operator, the guys on the press had stopped working. They were watching. They knew. They knew I was the only one giving a damn about whether they went home with all their limbs. I looked at Hunter. I looked at his smug friends. I realized something in that moment. I couldn't save them, not like this. As long as I was here, acting as a buffer, Hunter felt safe. He felt he could push the limits because Mary would catch it. I was his safety net. He was using me to perform acrobatics over a pit of spikes. To save the plant, I had to remove the net. "Understood," I said. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just adjusted my hard hat. "Good," Hunter sneered. "Go push some paper." I walked away. I felt the eyes of the crew on me. I saw Miller give me a subtle nod, a look of grim solidarity. He knew. I went back to my office. My hands weren't shaking. They were steady as stone. I sat down at my desk and pulled up the schematics for the Titan X7 one last time. I checked the vibration damper specs. Hunter had ordered the Type B dampers. They were rated for 2,000 RPM. The turbine ran at 3,600. It wasn't a question of if it would fail. It was a question of when. I picked up the phone and dialed the external engineering firm that validated our specs, the one Hunter had fired last week to save money. I got the voicemail of the lead engineer. "Hey Jim, it's Mary at Peterson Forge. Just wanted to confirm for my records that you did advise against the Type B dampers." "Yeah, I thought so, thanks." I hung up. I added that note to the log. Then I saw the email draft I'd been working on for days. The resignation. It was sitting there, blinking. To Hunter Peterson, Board of Directors CC, Legal, HR. I hovered over the send button. But not yet. I needed one more thing. I needed to give him the rope. I printed out the non-active zone designation Hunter had just invented. I stamped it rejected by safety director. I signed it. I scanned it. I was building a coffin for his career, nail by nail. And the best part, he was handing me the hammer. Thursday morning. The day before the rescheduled audit that wasn't rescheduled. I was in my office, drinking coffee that tasted like despair, when the door banged open. It didn't open, it exploded inward. Hunter stood there, holding a stack of binders. My binders. The standard operating procedures, SOPs I had written, refined, and enforced for nearly 2 decades. He dropped them on my desk, thud. Dust motes danced in the morning light. "We're going lean," Hunter announced, breathless. He looked manic. "I was up all night reading these. Do you know how much redundancy is in here? Wait 3 minutes for pressure equalization. 2-man verification for valve opening? It's bloat, Mary. It's corporate cholesterol." He tapped the stack with a manicured finger. "I'm tossing these. We're implementing a digital, streamlined checklist. 1 page, fast, efficient." I looked at the binders. Those pages were stained with sweat. Some had notes in the margins from when old man Peterson, and I figured out how to keep the boiler from overheating in the summer of '08. "Those regulations are written in blood," Hunter said, my voice barely a whisper. "That 3-minute wait? That's because in 1998, a guy named Steve opened a valve too fast and the steam took the skin off his face. That bloat is why you still have a workforce." "Ancient history," Hunter yelled. "We have sensors now, we have automation. You are clinging to the past because it makes you feel important. You're a hall monitor in a billion-dollar industry." He leaned over the desk, his face inches from mine. You're obsolete. Mary, and honestly, I'm tired of fighting you. You're fired. The words hung in the air. You're fired. I expected to feel panic. I expected to feel anger, but I didn't. I felt relief. It was like dropping a heavy rucksack after a 50-mile march. Fired, I repeated. Effective immediately, Hunter said, straightening his tie. Pack your box. Leave the keys. Security will escort you out. I stood up slowly. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the master ring. It was heavy. Janitor-style ring with 30 keys. Keys to the high-voltage cages, the chemical lockers, the lockout padlocks, the main gate overrides. I looked at the keys, then I looked at Hunter. You know what these open? I asked. Doors, he scoffed. Give them here. They open the cages that keep the voltage from arcing, I said, sliding the ring off my belt loop. They open the valves that flood the suppression system. They aren't keys to the building, Hunter. They're the keys to the beast. I dropped them on the desk. They hit with a heavy metallic clatter. Clang, it's your beast now, I said. Hunter snatched them up like a trophy. About time. Now get out. I have a turbine to spin up. I grabbed my purse. I grabbed my personal coat, the Carhartt he hated. I didn't touch the binders. I didn't touch the computer. You might want to check the calendar, Hunter, I said as I walked to the door. I know my schedule, he shouted at my back. I stopped at the door frame. Look back at my office, the view of the floor, the sparks, the guys. I saw Miller down below looking up. He saw me without my hard hat. He saw the box in my hand. I grabbed a small box of personal photos. He stopped moving. He took his own hard hat off and held it against his chest. A silent salute. I nodded to him. Stay safe, brother, I thought, because Daddy's home and he's drunk on power. Goodbye, Hunter, I said. Yeah, close the door, he muttered. Already texting? I closed the door. I walked down the hall. I didn't take the elevator. I took the stairs. One step for every year I'd wasted saving this ungrateful little prick from himself. I reached the lobby. Brenda was crying. Mary, I heard. I can't believe. It's okay, Brenda, I said, patting her shoulder. Do me a favor. Take your lunch break early today, in an hour, go to the park. Stay there for a while. She looked confused but nodded. Okay, Mary. I walked out the front doors. The air was cold and gray. It smelled of impending snow. I walked to my truck. I sat in the driver's seat. I didn't start the engine yet. I pulled out my phone. I opened the email app. The draft was still there. The one with the attachments, the photos of the bubbles, the logs of the ignored warnings, the non-active zone rejection. I added one more recipient to the CC line. Reynolds, T. State Department of Occupational Safety and Health. Subject, formal resignation and notification of imminent hazard. I hit send. Then I started the truck. I didn't go home. I drove 3 miles down the road to Sally's Diner, the greasy spoon where all the inspectors grabbed lunch. I ordered a black coffee and a slice of pie. I checked my watch. 10:15 a.m. Reynolds usually hit the road by 9 o'clock. He'd be arriving right about now. The diner was empty except for a trucker nursing a hangover and a waitress named Deb who had been smoking the same brand as me since the Reagan administration. You're early, hun, Deb said, pouring coffee into a mug that was chipped on the rim. Plant blow up? Not yet, I said, taking a sip. The coffee was hot, bitter, and perfect, but give it an hour. I stared at my phone. The sent timestamp was 10:18 a.m. That email was a work of art. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't a rant. It was cold, hard data. Attachment A, photo of compromised foundation. Attachment B, audio recording of CEO overriding safety stop. Attachment C, log of disabled sensors on press #4. Attachment D, lack of certified safety officer on premises effective 10:15 a.m. That last one was the kicker. By law, facility of Peterson's size operating high-pressure steam and heavy forgery must have a certified OSHA-competent person on the floor during active shifts. Hunter didn't know that law. He thought safety director was just a title I made up to feel special. He didn't know it was a license requirement for his insurance. My phone buzzed, a text from Miller. Miller, he's running around like a headless chicken, trying to figure out which key opens the executive bathroom. You really gone? I typed back. Gone. Keep your head down, Mike. Don't sign anything. I looked out the window. The sky was getting darker. A storm was coming. Fitting. I imagined the scene back at the plant. Hunter probably thought he had won. He was probably standing on that catwalk, looking down at his kingdom, thinking about how much money he was going to save on red tape. He was probably telling the scabs to speed up the welding. He had no idea that I hadn't just left. I had pulled the pin on a grenade and handed it to him, telling him it was a paperweight. I took a bite of cherry pie. It tasted like high fructose corn syrup in victory. My phone buzzed again. This time an email notification. Automated reply from the state board. Receipt acknowledged. Case #4992B has been updated. Then, a text from a number I hadn't heard from in years. Reynolds, just got your email. I'm 5 minutes out. You serious about the foundation bubbles? I typed back, see for yourself, asked to see the curing logs. Oh wait, there aren't any. Reynolds, copy that. I'm going in heavy. In inspector speak, that meant he wasn't coming for chat. He was coming with the red tags, the stop work orders, the padlocks. I signaled Deb for a refill. Deb, keep him coming. I think I'm going to be here a while. Celebration or funeral? She asked. A little bit of both, I said. I sat there, a 50-year-old woman in a diner, unemployed for the first time in 2 decades. I should have been terrified about my mortgage. I should have been worried about health insurance. But all I could think about was the look on Hunter's face when he realized that safety wasn't a department. It was the only reason he still had a business. I checked the time. 10:45 a.m. Reynolds was walking through the gate right now. I didn't need to be there to see it. I could see it in my head, clear as 4K video. 10:50 a.m. Reynolds would park his state-issued Ford Explorer right in the fire lane because he could. He'd put on his hard hat, white battered with the state seal on the front. He'd grab his clipboard and his lockout kit. My phone vibrated on the table. It was Miller again. He was my eyes and ears. Miller, holy SHT. State cops just pulled in, and a guy who looks like a pissed-off bulldog. I smiled. That was Reynolds, and he brought backup. He must have read the part of my email about the hostile management environment. Smart man, me, that's Reynolds. Do exactly what he says. Miller, he's at the front desk. Brenda looks like she's gonna faint. Hunter isn't answering his page. I chuckled. Hunter was probably in the bathroom, finally figuring out which key worked, or screaming at a vendor on his cell. I closed my eyes and pictured the lobby. Reynolds leaning over the counter. I'm here for the audit, and to investigate a report of imminent danger. Where's the safety director? She left, Brenda would stammer. Left for the day? No, fired, about an hour ago. That was the kill shot. Miller, he's walking onto the floor. He just cut the lock on the side gate with bolt cutters. He ain't waiting for a badge. Classic Reynolds. If you don't let him in, he assumes you're hiding bodies. Miller, he's at the turbine. He's yelling at the scabs. He just kicked the welder's power supply plug out of the wall. I laughed out loud. Deb looked at me concernedly. You okay, hun? I'm fantastic, Deb, just fantastic. Miller, Hunter just ran out of his office. He's red as a beet. He's screaming at the bulldog. This was it. The confrontation. The collision of the unstoppable force, Reynolds, and the immovable idiot, Hunter. Miller, Hunter is telling him to get off private property. He poked the bulldog in the chest. Oh my God, you never touch an inspector, ever. That's assault on a state official. That turns a fine into a felony. Miller, cops are moving in. Hunter is backing up. He looks scared, Mary. He's looking around for you. Of course he was. He wanted Mommy to come fix it. He wanted me to smooth talk the inspector, show the logs, explain the mitigation strategies. But Mommy was eating cherry pie 3 miles away. Miller, Bulldog is putting a red tag on the main breaker, the whole plant. He's shutting it down, Mary. Lights are going off, a red tag on the main breaker, the nuclear option. It means this entire facility is unfit for human occupancy. Miller, it's quiet. Oh God, it's so quiet. Hunter is crying, actually crying. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. The silence in the plant meant the danger was over. The turbine wouldn't spin, the foundation wouldn't crack, the steam wouldn't blow. I had saved them. I had saved Miller and the scabs and even Hunter's stupid, ungrateful life. And I did it by getting fired. Me, tell the boys to go home, Mike. You'll get paid for the day. Union rules on a safety shutdown. Miller, you're a legend, Mary. We're coming to Sally's. First round is on me. I put the phone down. I watched a state trooper car speed past the diner window, lights flashing, heading toward the plant. Deb, I said, you might want to put another pot on. We're about to have a rush. 10 minutes later, the first truck started pulling into Sally's lot. It was like a convoy of liberation. Guys in dirty coveralls, hard hats under their arms, grinning like school kids on a snow day. Miller walked in first. He spotted me in the booth and threw his arms up. The Queen in the North, he bellowed. The diner erupted. Guys were clapping, hooting, shaking my hand. It was the retirement party Hunter never would have given me. Miller slid into the booth opposite me. He looked shaken but happy. You missed it, Mary. It was beautiful. Reynolds tore him a new one. I mean, verbally eviscerated him. Did he cite the foundation? I asked, stealing a fry from Miller's plate. He cited the foundation, the welds, the lack of Lodo logs, the lack of you. And get this. He cited Hunter for interference with a safety official. That's why the cops were there. Did they arrest him? Cited and released, but he has to appear in court. But the plant? Locked up tight, chains on the gates. Reynolds said nobody goes back inside until a certified safety director signs off on a remediation plan, and since we don't have a safety director, Hunter is screwed. I finished. My phone started ringing. It wasn't a text this time, it was a call. Caller ID, Peterson Forge exec office. I let it ring. Not answering? Miller asked, grinning. Let him leave a voicemail. It stopped, then it rang again immediately. Caller ID, Hunter Peterson's cell. I declined the call, then a new number. A 212 area code. New York, that's the board, I said. The private equity vampires. I answered that one. Mary speaking. Mary, this is Marcus Thorne, chairman of the board. We have a situation. I'm aware, Mr. Thorne. I believe the technical term is a level 1 safety shutdown. Yes. Look, Mary, we've spoken to Hunter. He seems to think this is a misunderstanding. He says you walked off the job without notice. Mr. Thorne, I said, my voice steady. I have a time-stamped email from 10:15 a.m. where Hunter fired me for refusing to ignore safety violations. I also have the audio of him ordering me to ignore the audit. Do you like me to forward that to your legal department? Or should I just send it to the Cleveland Plain dealer? Silence on the other end. Long, heavy silence. No, Thorne said, his voice dropping an octave. That won't be necessary. Mary, we need the plant open. Every hour we are down costs us $50,000. We need you to come back, talk to the inspector. Smooth this over. I can't do that, Marcus. I'm not an employee. I'm just a lady eating cherry pie. We'll reinstate you with a raise, 10%. I looked around the diner, at Miller, at the young guys who still had all their fingers because I yelled at them. No, I said, 20% and a bonus. Marcus, I said, the turbine foundation is bad. The whole thing needs to be ripped out and repoured. That's a 2-week job, minimum. Hunter wanted it done in 3 days. I won't sign off on that. I won't put my name on a death trap. We will fire Hunter, Thorne said. Words came out fast like he was ejecting ballast from a sinking balloon. We will remove him, effective immediately. We'll put an interim director in. We'll do the remediation. We'll do it your way. Just please come back and talk to Reynolds. He says he won't talk to anyone but you. I smiled. Good old Tom Reynolds, loyal to the end. I'll think about it, I said. I'm going to finish my pie first. Call me in an hour. I hung up. Miller was staring at me. Mouth open? Did you just hang up on the chairman? He interrupted my lunch, I said. I didn't go back in an hour. I went back the next morning. I drove my truck up to the main gate. The chains were still there. A state trooper was sitting in his car, reading a newspaper. When he saw me, he waved. He knew who I was. Everyone knew who I was now. I parked in the executive spot, the one with the Tesla Charger. My truck didn't fit, so I took up 2 spots. Reynolds was waiting for me by the front door. He looked tired but smug. Took you long enough, he said, shaking my hand. Pie was that good? Best pie of my life, Tom. Well, you got a mess inside, but the foundation is the worst of it. We drilled core samples. It was like Swiss cheese if they'd fired that up. I know, I said. The board sent a letter, Reynolds said, handing me a thick envelope. They want to settle the fines, and they want to reinstate your license authority. Condition is you oversee the teardown. We walked inside. The lobby was quiet. Brenda was there, looking relieved. He's gone, she whispered. Security escorted him out last night. He was crying about his stock options. I walked onto the floor. It was dead silent, but it was a good silence. It was the silence of a patient in recovery, not a corpse. I climbed the stairs to the catwalk. I looked down at the Titan X7. It was surrounded by yellow tape. Monument to stupidity. My phone buzzed. It was an email from Marcus Thorne. Subject, contract offer Mary, see attached, Director of Operations and Safety. Full autonomy, name your salary, just get us open, Director of Operations, not just safety. That meant I ran the floor. I ran the schedule. I ran the budget. I looked down at Miller, who had snuck in to help clean up. He gave me a thumbs up. I hit reply. Attached, consulting fee schedule. My rate is triple for remediation work. Also, I want a budget for new PPE for the entire floor, and the Tesla Charger gets ripped out and replaced with a smoking shed. I hit send. They accepted within 3 minutes. It took 3 weeks to jackhammer that turbine out of the floor. It took another month to pour the concrete right. We missed the quarterly targets. We lost millions in potential revenue. But nobody died. Nobody lost a finger. And on the day we finally fired up the Titan X7, properly, safely, with 0 vibration, the sound was perfect. It was a low, steady hum. I stood on the catwalk, listening to it. Yeah, I was inside, but I was the Director of Operations now. I'd write myself a warning later. Hunter was gone, probably ruining some crypto startup by now. The red tape he hated so much, it was the only thing holding the world together. Safety first, I whispered. Then I went back to work. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit him.